Welcome to my TED Talk. I am Odysseus, king of Ithaca and son of Laertes, and today I would like to share with you a story, something that I am affectionately calling my Odyssey. As a little preface, I do need to tell you that due to this Odyssey, I have been submerged in a lot of water and I have gotten a cold, so apologies for any sniffling and coughing. Thank you. We're going to start naturally where everyone should, which is after 7 years of imprisonment on an island with a nymph. I have spent many years on Ogygia just wrought with grief over not having seen my wife, my son, or my homeland over already the 10 years prior because of the Trojan War, now being 17 years. And luck finally turns. Calypso decides to release me. I am allowed to leave, and she gives me the tools and the materials in order to make my own raft so that I can sail to the island of Skira, and so that I may meet the Phaeacians and get safe passage back to Ithaca. Unfortunately, Poseidon is not done with me. Now, you may wonder why he was not done with me already. We're going to get back to that, but what's important right now is that he throws waves and winds and terrible, terrible doom upon me and my meager little raft that I had managed to fashion, and I almost drown. Luckily, the sea goddess, the Cothea, ends up coming to my aid. She hands me this magical veil and says that I must strip off all my clothes and dive into the ocean in order to be saved. And, well, currently a god is currently killing me, and so I wasn't especially enthused about trusting another right off the bat, but as I really am on the verge of drowning, I do end up going along with it. I strip off all my clothes and don the magical veil that Leucothea had given me, and I end up swimming safely over to Skira. And so, meeting the Phaeacians, I'm lucky enough to happen upon the daughter of the king of Skira, Nausicaa. She and her friends were down on the beach, and though naked as I was at the time, and with only an olive branch to cover my dignity, I put on some good old charm, and she brought me to her father's palace, where I politely and somewhat desperately begged for his help in returning to my home that I so desperately yearned for. And he was kind enough to give it all. He gave me clothes, a place to sleep, food, and a ship for me to use, despite me yet not having told him where I am going or who I am. And so, on the eve that I'm supposed to journey out, he hosts a celebration where music is played in my honor. We hear tales of Odysseus and his exploits in Troy, and I weep to myself over all the people that I lost in that war. And then an uppity fellow decides to insult me and my dignity, and I decide to show him up by throwing a discus far and away, and after that, no one decided to pick a fight with me again. And I decided to finally reveal my name to my benefactor, Alcinous. I say that my name is Odysseus, son of Laertes. I am the king of Ithaca, and I need to go home. However, my name is known far and wide, and so they immediately thought, well, where have you been all these years? What has happened? And so as a final thank you, I decide to regale them with exactly what I have been doing. And so we begin at the true beginning, which is right after the War of Troy, where me and my crew, we reach Ciconia, where we raid the locals for food and treasure, just riding off the vibe that we had just come off of. You know how men are, no big. However, they retaliate. Oops, we didn't expect that. And then my people start dying, and that's also not great. And so we lose several of my fleet to the retaliation from thousands of Ciconians until We managed to just barely get away. Then Zeus comes in and meddles, throws a mighty northern wind, and we are thrown off course and we end up on the island of the Lotus Eaters. Now, the Lotus Eaters are a group of people who blissfully live life by not knowing a single thing. My crew decided to partake of this lotus fruit, which is exactly what robs them of their memory. They forget where they came from, their families, and so we have more losses, though not necessarily that of death, but that of no longer knowing who oneself is. We sail on in our sorrow and reach the island of the Cyclopses. We meet, eventually, our doom as we explore the island. We hunt some goats. We happen upon a massive cave with cheese and other foods in it. And though my crew wants to steal from it, I decide it is far more polite to wait and talk to the owner of this industry. And the owner does show up, and he ends up trapping us with a big stone blocking the cave entrance. And he starts partaking of my crew. After having eaten his share multiple times, he picks me up and asks me who I am. I decide that it is better to keep things anonymous, and I say that my name is Nobody. And he returns telling me that, well, Nobody, I will eat you last as a little gift. Knowing then that really our fate is about to be sealed, I devise a plan. The escape plan is as such. We stab, we hide, and then we run. So, the stab involves burning and sharpening some olive branch sticks and stabbing Polyphemus in the eye. Now, Polyphemus, once we did that, screamed out in agony, screamed for help from the other Cyclopses on the island. And when they show up, they ask, "What is happening? Is anybody hurting you?" And he says, "Nobody is hurting me. Nobody is." And then they're like, "All right, cool." And then they leave. And then the next step of it is to hide. We strap ourselves to the bellies of the rams that Polyphemus has in his cave. And when morning comes, Polyphemus opens the stone to let his goats graze, and we sneak out with them. And once we're scot-free, we make a run for it, back to our ship, and Polyphemus realizes all too late and tries to throw rocks at us from the island as we sail out to sea, and he almost destroys our vessels. But he doesn't. And in my hubris there, with victory in my heart, I then reveal that I am Odysseus, son of Laertes, king of Ithaca, and I do not regret a single point of agony that I have dealt him. Unfortunately, that is when he invokes the name of his father, Poseidon, and then says and begs his father to bring ruin upon me. Now you might understand why Poseidon had some beef with me earlier. I may be in trouble. But we managed to sail away, and we reached the home of the wind god, Aeolus, where I spent a month regaling him of what I had been doing prior. He even rewards me with a bag of the four winds, a treasure that I am not supposed to open. And so I keep that word. In fact, it brings us such good fortune that soon Ithaca is in sight. However, I'm exhausted from my journey, and so I, unfortunately, close my eyes, nod off, and as I do, my crew seems to be convinced that there's treasure in that bag, and that it's treasure that only I have been promised while they walk around empty-handed. And so they open it. And the four winds that Aeolus, the wind god, had stuffed into the bag all come rushing out and blow us off course. We're tossed far, far away from Ithaca until we meagerly sail up to Aeolia once again. I go and ask Aeolus for help, but this time he turns us away in scorn. Something tells me the gods have been gossiping. Our next stop was Lestragonia. We reached there after 7 days. We ended up meeting with a giant known as Antiphates, and we hoped for help. Unfortunately, he started eating us, and so we ran, and then they chased us, and then many more cannibal giants came out of the woodworks and tried to eat us and throw rocks at us and kill us very much. And we desperately ran away, and there was only one ship that survived that entire ordeal. My ship sailed on by its lonesome, with only me and the meager crew of this vessel remaining. Pardon me. Poseidon did some real work on me. We eventually reached the island of Aiaia, where, well, you might know that Circe, the sorceress, lives. We sit there on the shores, racked by grief of the deaths of our comrades, missing our families. We're also hungry, and we're terrified. Terrified of, well, other people at this point. We do know that there is a temple on this island, and yet trying to approach someone, well, right now we don't have a good track record of that. A giant, cannibals, and also a god that then turned back on us. So I can't quite blame my crew, but we tried. And my relative and right hand, Eurylochus, ends up leading the charge to investigate with some of the crew. Unfortunately, they are, everyone except Eurylochus, put under Circe's spell. They are turned into pigs, and when Eurylochus returns, he begs us to not make another try. He begs us to simply leave, but I cannot. I have lost too many. So I get some help from up on high. I did not expect it, but Hermes descends and offers me the help of a plant, the moly, that's supposed to make me immune to the sorceress's magic. He also says that once she tries to strike me with her wand, I should brandish my steel, at least just threaten her, and then when she cries in fear, that I can bind her to an oath that will make her undo the spell. And I do all that, and it all plays out exactly as the god predicted. And though Eurylochus begins to question exactly all the risks we're taking, we decide to stay with Circe after she has chilled out some after making this oath for us. But Circe then gives us our next mission, where we have to travel to the underworld. She says that I must find Tiresias, a prophet who will be able to tell me what I must do. And so we journey to the underworld with a ritual instructed by Circe, the ram and the ewe and the honey, milk and barley. And we bring forth the dead. And as they march up to us there at the maw of the underworld that we sail to, we see Elpenor, one of my crew who had died on the island of Circe, and Anticlea, my mother. Though I am not permitted to speak to them yet, because I must only speak to Tiresias first, so that he may impart upon me his prophecy. He tells me to not slay the holy oxen of the sun god Helios. He tells me that I will end up alone on my journey back to Ithaca, and that I must slay the suitors that are currently occupying my palace and trying to take my wife from me. I'm also fortunate enough to see more people that matter to me. My fellows of the Trojan War. I see King Agamemnon. I see Achilles, Patroclus. I get the opportunity to embrace them and talk to them before I must depart once more. And as much as I desperately tried to hug my mother, who I now realize has died in the time that I have been gone, I must simply depart. Circe warns us of the additional challenges ahead, and it includes the Sirens, Planctes, Scylla, and Charybdis. Now, the sirens are the first one that we journey past, in which we are to stuff our ears with wax so that we do not hear their enchanting song, lest we drown. But, supposedly, I am the only one who may hear the siren's song, and so I am tied to the mast. My fellows stuff their ears, and when I cry under enchantment to be released, they are to tie me tighter. And we make it through. We pass the sirens to their despair. Our next challenge, we actually get a choice. Either to plank tease, living stones that would grind us to dust, or a maelstrom and a monster that will devour us. We go for Scylla and Charybdis. We sail around the maelstrom that Charybdis forms as it's about to spout out more water. Make our way into Scylla's caves. And though no one wanted to have to go to any of these directions, Scylla was the only answer, because Scylla will only eat 6, 1 for each head, rather than taking all of us as we drown. And so, having lost even more, we end up on the island of Thrinacia. We are but very few left now. We are hungry. We are stranded by a storm that's woven and keeps us there for over a month. We ran out of the supplies that Circe had given us. And though I know where we are, and I know through the warning that we are not to harm the oxen of Helios, my comrades unfortunately decide to sacrifice the cattle. Helios asks for reparations, and Zeus comes and strikes down our ship with a mighty lightning bolt. I am the only one left. The winds that then are thrown at me toss me back to Charybdis, the maelstrom, and I only barely escape it by grabbing on to the branch of a fig tree, waiting for my little scrap of a boat to be spouted out by Charybdis, which I then ride out to Ogygia, which is where I was made prisoner to Calypso. Now, as you may realize, I would then have been all the way back at the Phaeacians, where I was given a celebration and about to depart for Ithaca. I wake up in Ithaca after the party in Skira, and once I reach there, I am met by a fellow who I later learned was Athena, my patron, who transformed me into a beggar, disguised me so that I may move around Ithaca without the suitors or their allies slaying me. I meet my son who I have not seen for 20 years, and we embrace, and we begin to plan. The endgame begins, and we form a plan of hiding all the weapons that are in the palace, away from all the suitors, so that they will have no means of fighting back once I strike. And I make my approach, and I am spotted once by my old wet nurse, Eurycleia, who recognized me by the scar on my leg, and my poor and loyal friend, my dog Argos, who had waited faithfully for me to return, but who luckily was willing to part with the living world once he had seen me. Now, I believe my wife caught wind of that maybe I had returned, and so she tells the whole palace that she has a test for everyone, that she will in fact remarry whoever ends up winning this tournament that she has declared. We are to string my bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. Pardon me. Now, this is a feat that only I have ever managed to accomplish, and I am rather sure my wife knew. None of the suitors were able to do this, but I do. And once I did, I killed them all. I killed every single last one of them. You think I'd let him live? Heck no. I killed all of them with the very bow that they gave me, and then my son killed a couple too. Father bonding time. So, Penelope then decides to test me after I reveal myself to her, being incredulous at the prospect of me actually having returned safe. She tells me to move the bed in our bedroom, and I tell her that I cannot, because that bed is stuck to the floor, carved out of the olive tree that I did when we got married. Now, reunited with my family, I would very much like to spend in peace, but the families of the suitors that I have killed decide to retaliate. But this time, favor's on my side, and Athena steps in and calls for peace. And finally, I can breathe and hug my family. So what did I learn from my miseries? I learned that voice and virtue gets you far. So respect and lawfulness and abiding by the words of gods. But also that a little bit of sweet talk will do a lot more than throwing out quips. I learned one must endure, hold true and fast. As hopeless as it is, do not give up. Those sacrifices may be necessary, and it is grim work, but sometimes it must happen. Of course, for all of the temptations thrown my way, I know that nothing is dearer than home and kindred. And 20 years have not done anything to weaken how much I love my family. It also doesn't hurt to have a goddess on your side. That's a nice bonus. So, anyway, I have been Odysseus, son of Laertes. Thank you very much for hearing my TED Talk. Thank you.